All right, so today we're gonna demonstrate what kind of flooring are we installing over here?
We're gonna put in some LVT,
Okay.
some glue down luxury vinyl tile,
Yep.
but that stuff's so thin that we have to skim out the whole floor because all of these little divots will eventually telegraph through the floor if you don't patch it.
This was the existing floor, and we've already started the process out here, as you can see.
We're gonna mix up some patch. We're gonna skim this out.
So we call it floor patch. Is there any other names for it?
No, I just call it floor patch.
All right.
And we're just gonna skim it out. They're gonna make up some patch. And then we already did it somewhat, but some of it's so thick that it shrinks down some. We're gonna have to go over this again. And then.
So what's the goal when doing this floor patch?
Get it as smooth as possible. We're gonna come through with the floor buffer, sand it all down, and see where the low spots were, high spots, skim out the high spots to make them even.
And you're doing all of this because when you lay that down, right? You'll be able to feel.
You'll be able to feel, and then over 6 months or so, you'll be able to see it.
Gotcha. All right, so this is all the floor prep that it takes. What about this? We had to clean these, right? Essentially, once we got done with all the sheetrock out there, there was a film over the floor. And is that important to clean, or can you just put the leveler right over it?
You definitely have to get it clean because the patch will not stick to dirt, dust, or anything.
So you're wasting time just going over it unless you clean. So you really need to clean the floors. Gotcha. Yeah. And then the other thing that we did on these lines.
They scraped them and vacuumed them out to get all the dirt out because, like I said, it won't stick to dirt.
So we had to go in and clean these lines out and then scrape them and then vacuum them and then go over and mop, scrub, clean.
Yep.
Make sure
It's nice and fresh.
Now we're going to do training on how to actually, is there a technique to this part of what we're doing with the buckets and mixing and stuff like that?
Well, normally they say you're supposed to use, I think it was like a gallon per bag, but you're only supposed to mix up so much per that you can spread in 8 minutes depending on what you're mixing. You usually typically make, when we did this area, we were making a whole bucket at a time, but for something like this, we don't need a whole bucket.
And that was because you had, what, 4 or 5 people?
Yeah, we had 4 guys pulling patch.
All right.
How long do you have to work with it before it sets?
8 to 10 minutes.
8 to 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I don't know how much you want to use to.
Not much, just for training. Unless we got somebody that's going to be here doing this today.
And you want to use low RPMs when you're mixing. Otherwise, that'll help.
How do you, so when you're talking about adjusting RPMs, right? Where do you adjust that at?
I just don't pull the trigger. In your trigger. We're going to need more than that, man.
And how do you know what consistency?
I don't want it like creamy. You don't want it too thick, like pancake batter almost.
But you don't want it too thin or too thick, right?
Yep. You're gonna need some more.
You need to grab it real quick? Hey, everybody come grab some of this floor and let's move it.
Didn't it give me a dead battery?
I haven't battered up.
No, it just stopped it.
It's just, we'll edit all this stuff. Is there a reason that you use that larger paddle bit?
No.
No, it's just what you kind of.
Really, that paddle bit will stir a thicker material faster than like a smaller paddle. I feel like smaller paddles is more for a finer mix,
There's a good.
but it's whoever. That's it.
And I noticed you got this bucket of water sitting right next to it. What was the reason for that?
Because you can adjust your, if that's too thick,
Put a little more.
Put a little more water,
Yeah.
and then you put your bit right in it when you're done.
Clean my paddle off. Oop.
So you don't want to, but you don't want to just sit the paddle to the side with the stuff on it.
No.
Let it harden up.
No.
All right.
One of the corners, it don't matter.
Is there a reason? Is there
Just
a
put it
point
on-
you should
on.
start in a room, or does it matter? You want to work your way out of the
Yeah,
room,
you
right?
wanna work your way out.
As you're doing this,
And I usually stay about ½ inch away from the wall. No one's ever gonna walk that close to where it'll telegraph through. It makes it easier when you go to sand the floor, less you have to scrape. I'm just gonna spread it all over. I usually try to get all the edges for a little bit. That way you're not walking around.
I got you. And then you work the middle through.
And you always try to go parallel with your lines as much as you can. Get more patch.
And you're talking these lines.
Like
okay.
this line right here, it's either gonna be high or low. I always try to, like that one right there.
You can see
This
the
side
line.
is low. That floats it out some. But sometimes when they're going that one, go right here. That one's perfectly level, so it doesn't need to be floated that way.
Say that again.
I said that one's like perfectly level, so I don't have to go this way with the line.
Yeah.
Jeremiah, what happens if you get trash in it?
Scrape it out later.
Later?
Sand it.
Oh, it's gotta be sanded afterwards?
Now there's a line like that next to the wall. I try to get it. 'Cause
You got to get closer because the lines are. I got
you
you.
know, the weight of the floor just eventually over time will telegraph.
Gotcha. And now you're tying it back into the old.
Look.
And how long does it take for this to usually set up to harden enough to keep? Do you let it sit a day, or?
If I gotta repatch it or sand it or something, I would probably hours, couple hours, depending on.
So it dries relatively quick. You can see some of it starting to dry already. Okay.
And especially if you're going back over something, it'll dry really quick.
Gotcha.
Depends on how dry it is on the surface you're putting it on too. If that stuff in there was so dry and dusty, it's gonna suck the moisture right out of it.
Gotcha.
And you ain't gotta worry about getting it down to perfection. Begin with, just
There's a
come
couple
back and
spots like right here.
that stuff off. Anyway,
Like
see that
that.
ridge over there?
Like those ridges, you're gonna go back over it again, and then you're gonna sand anyway, right?
And we'll sand it first.
Oh, you'll sand it first.
Sand it first. That way you're not double making the ridge even bigger.
Gotcha. If you notice, it's like a rubbery type of, it's not a hard, like if you feel it, it's more like a rubbery consistency. What else? Any important stuff to know? Hey, was there a certain type of trowel or size that you want to do this with, or does that matter?
Just flat trowel.
Flat trowel. All right, what else? Anything else to add?
A big area like this, everybody's gonna come in and sand the whole thing out too. Just because it's easier like that, you're gonna get a flatter finish.
Gotcha. All right. Keep it clean. All right.